Number 9. Frederick Darnell Hall. Viral footage that surfaced online in 2018 showed a violent altercation between a man and several Raleigh police officers, leading many to question whether the officers' use of force was excessive. The man can be seen swinging at 3 cops, one of whom has his baton out. Eventually, an officer grabs the suspect's legs from behind and the police proceed to subdue him as the struggle between them continues. Other clips show as many as 6 officers surrounding the suspect and striking him on the back with a baton at least a dozen times. In one video, the man appears to bite an officer's leg. Bonnie Kidder, a bystander who filmed part of the ordeal with a cell phone, told local station WBTV that the suspect had stopped his car at an intersection and got out. He wasn't wearing a shirt or shoes. An officer got out of the car behind him to see what was going on, eventually leading to the violent interactions that were captured on video. The suspect, 44-year-old Frederick Darnell Hall, was charged with resisting a public officer, assault, injuring a law enforcement officer, and assaulting a government official. Kidder said that it didn't look like the man had any plans to stop swinging at the police, and that she didn't think that their response to his behavior constituted excessive force. Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman ultimately declined to press charges against any of the responding officers, stating that while the video was troubling to watch, police are allowed to take necessary action to stop an attack. It's not the first time that Freeman's office has considered whether officers went too far in a videotaped conflict. 2 former state troopers and a sheriff's deputy were charged with assaulting a pedestrian with flashlights and using their police dog during an April exchange. Number 8. Samantha Luna. 20-year-old Samantha Luna and her friends were driving around Arcata, California one day in 2018 when Humboldt State University police pulled their vehicle over because a young woman had stuck her head through the sunroof. The officers arrested the passenger on suspicion of public intoxication and several other charges. Things appear to have escalated quickly after Samantha asked the police how to get her friend out of jail, based on some cell phone video clips she later posted on social media. The viral footage shows a tense verbal interaction between the young woman and a female sergeant, who seems annoyed by the questions the group is asking about their recently arrested friend. Things become more and more heated until the cop physically yanks Samantha out of the car and proceeds to subdue the woman, grabbing onto her hair in the process. 2 other officers jump in to assist while Samantha screams at the officer, calling her crazy and asking her what is wrong with her. At some point during the disturbing video, one of the young woman's friends can be heard telling her not to resist, before telling the police that it's unnecessary for 3 of them to be on top of Samantha. By then, Samantha had grabbed hold of the sergeant's hair and was refusing to let go, leading the sergeant to instruct her colleagues to cut her hair in order to free her. Samantha was charged with 7 misdemeanors, including resisting arrest, battery of a peace officer, public intoxication, and providing false identification to a police officer. She raised $1,600 for legal fees through a crowdfunding campaign. A plea deal is in the works. Luna, who was defiant and unremorseful, will not be able to change the outcome and spin this plea for more attention and a win. According to a local news source, disrespecting the police and being drunk with a minor in your car is okay, is the message that the DA's office is sending to the community. A deferred entry of judgment for at least 1 charge is part of the resolution. Number 7. DANNISHA Chanel Walker. In 2018, a deputy from the Charles County Sheriff's Office in Maryland responded to a call about a disorderly customer at a local Red Lobster restaurant. A manager claimed that a former employee, 21-year-old DANNISHA Chanel Walker, had come into the restaurant several times in recent weeks and caused numerous disturbances. She had been trying to fight employees, steal things, and leave without paying her bar tab. The woman had once again returned and sat at the bar despite being told to leave, at which point she told the manager to call the sheriff, and so he did. When the responding deputy asked Miss Walker to step outside and speak with him, she refused. He told her she was not allowed to be inside the restaurant, and she reportedly erupted into a verbal tirade, accusing the restaurant and the deputy of being racist. Walker continued refusing to leave and said that she was calling her lawyer. The deputy slid her seat out and instructed her to exit, and it still didn't work. So he grabbed Walker by the elbow and tried escorting her out. He ended up having to drag the woman out of Red Lobster, handcuffing her in the process and informing her that she was under arrest. Once officers got Walker outside, she continued yelling and resisting while trying to kick the officers. When they placed Walker into a police cruiser, she kicked the ceiling yelled profanities, and started spitting inside of the car. Walker was charged with resisting arrest, disturbing the peace, failure to obey a lawful order, and disorderly conduct. This wasn't Walker's only run-in with the law. She was also arrested on the 5th of July 2018 for violating a protective order after she refused to vacate a residence in Waldorf after police issued her an interim protective order requiring her to do so. And finally, Walker was again arrested on December 19, 2018 at the Waldorf Ford dealership on Route 301 for a comparable incident. She faces similar charges for the incidents. Number 6. Jamie Ray Saltzman. A police officer in Elizabethtown, Kentucky recently noticed a car pulled over on the side of the road and stopped to see if the driver was okay. In the vehicle, he found 45-year-old Jamie Ray Saltzman, who was reportedly sweating profusely, shaking, and not making sense. He was also acting erratically, grabbing things, and dialing numbers on his phone, according to an arrest report. When the officer asked Saltzman to step out of the car, he allegedly refused. He was held at gunpoint for several minutes until backup arrived and ended up being tasered twice while continuing to ignore police commands. Eventually, Saltzman got out of the vehicle and got partially onto the ground, but he tensed up while officers were trying to handcuff him, and in the process of having his hands forced behind his back, Saltzman allegedly ripped an officer's pants, causing a knee injury. Police charged him with public intoxication, resisting arrest, criminal mischief, and wanton endangerment of a police officer. While he was at Baptist Health Hardin, police also allegedly found more than 6 grams of suspected methamphetamine on Saltzman, according to the citation. Based on that discovery, the charge of a first offense, first-degree trafficking in a controlled substance was added. Number 5. Kenneth Stenek. Earlier this year, police in Olympia, Washington got a call about a group of transients stealing some corn dogs from a local gas station. One of the responding officers immediately recognized one of the accused as 36-year-old Kenneth Stenek, a so-called chronic offender, who police accused of committing constant crimes like theft, trespassing, disorderly behavior, threats, and assault, just to name a few. An employee told police that Stenek admitted to grabbing 2 corn dogs on his way out of the store after a member of his group was asked to leave for not wearing a mask. It was only then that the worker learned Stenek had recently been arrested for trespassing at that very same business. Because of Stenek's history of resisting arrest, several officers were called to the scene, where they took him into custody without incident. But he recently struck again outside an Olympia bank, where employees reported Stenek and a group of people he was with for drinking alcohol on their outdoor benches. A responding officer tried unsuccessfully to get help from a local unarmed crisis response team, who claimed Stenek had recently assaulted one of their staff members. When the police tried telling the suspect and his friends that they had to get off the bank's property, he reportedly responded with profanity and refused to leave, despite repeated warnings. Stenek then allegedly tossed the contents of his beer can all over an officer and resisted while the police struggled to get him in handcuffs and apply an additional restraint for their safety. He's currently being held at the Thurston County Jail on suspicion of resisting arrest, and it appears as though it's not his first incident with the law. According to the local outlet Jolt News, records show that Stenek had been arrested at least 21 times since May 2020. Number 4. Beach parties interrupted. Police in coastal areas throughout Massachusetts and New Hampshire have had their hands full lately with rowdy beachgoers who have allegedly taken their warm weather fun a little too far. State and local police recently found themselves face-to-face with unruly crowds at Revere Beach and Carson Beach in Boston, where hundreds of people gathered to party. Many of those accused of participating in drinking, drugs, and the eventual fighting that broke out are underage teens or adults who allegedly served minors alcohol. Police imposed a 6 p.m. parking ban at one of the beaches as a result of the mayhem, in an effort to deter people from going there to cause more trouble. Several juveniles faced charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. At least one minor was charged with having a weapon, and numerous other youths and adults faced various other charges, including operating under the influence of drugs, buying alcohol for minors, and domestic assault. Police in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire responded to a call about hundreds of people turning up for a well-advertised event, where fights reportedly broke out. Traffic was held up for an hour while police in riot gear dealt with the out-of-control group, many of whom faced charges ranging from disorderly conduct to resisting arrest. As for the adults arrested over the weekend, most faced a judge in South Boston and Revere for arraignment. Nearly all were released, but ordered to stay away from the beaches. In a tweet, the Massachusetts State Police reminded the public that they are welcome to come and enjoy the beach as long as they obey the law. Number 3. Jeffrey EKWALL. Police in Redding, California were already familiar with 46-year-old Jeffrey EKWALL when they were recently called to his home one morning based on claims that he was threatening his neighbor with a knife. Before the responding officers arrived, EKWALL had returned to his apartment and barricaded himself inside. He already had a lengthy record, including recent drug-related charges and allegations of domestic violence and resisting arrest, along with prior convictions for arson, threats, and assault with a deadly weapon. Officers and members of the Redding Police Department's Crisis Intervention Response Team spent 2 hours trying to negotiate with EKWALL from outside his front door, to no avail. He reportedly responded by yelling obscenities and throwing objects around inside his home. They then got a warrant to arrest the suspect for terroristic threats and brandishing a knife, allowing them to forcibly enter EKWALL's home. Upon entering, officers realized he had further barricaded himself in a bedroom. By the time they sent a canine into the room, EKWALL had leaped out of the window and started to run. Luckily, a police team and other canine were stationed outside, waiting for something like this to possibly happen, and they managed to bring the suspect into custody. Besides the aforementioned charges of making terroristic threats and brandishing a knife, he faces charges of criminal terrorist threats, brandishing a deadly weapon, and resisting arrest. Number 2. Sarah Soyemi. 36-year-old Sarah Soyemi was selling tea outside the White Oaks Mall in London, Ontario recently when police arrived and asked her to leave, reportedly acting on a complaint that the woman was already banned from the property. She allegedly refused to leave and was informed that she would then be taken into custody and charged with trespassing. Officers claimed that when they attempted to apprehend Soyemi, she resisted arrest and assaulted an officer. They charged her accordingly and for also failing to leave the premises as directed. Soyemi shared her version of the story in a TikTok video, where her eye appears to be swollen shut. She alleged that the responding officers pinned her down and asked her to let go of an officer's hair, and that one of them had then proceeded to punch her. According to Soyemi's account of the events, she was held for 3 hours without receiving any medical attention after requesting it for her injured eye. London Police Chief Steve Williams released a statement claiming that the department had reviewed video footage of the incident and that the police response was appropriate. He asked the public to withhold judgment until the facts of the matter are presented in court. Number 1. George Andrews. After witnessing a vehicle enter a closed travel plaza in the early morning hours recently, police in Rentham, Massachusetts ran the license plate and attempted to stop the driver, who sped away with his headlights turned off. The motorist entered a nearby cul-de-sac, and by the time he circled it, there were several police vehicles blocking his exit. Officers ordered the man to turn his truck off and throw the keys onto the ground, but he ignored the commands. In the meantime, police placed deflation devices beneath the driver's tires in an attempt to prevent him from fleeing. They also reportedly tried to de-escalate things by talking to the motorist, who was reported smoking a marijuana pipe and saying that he didn't understand why he was being stopped. Eventually, the police got fed up with the situation dragging out. When the man continued to refuse their commands, they broke one of his vehicle's windows and administered pepper spray. But instead of getting the man to comply, it caused him to step on the gas, causing him to hit a tree and 2 police officers, and nearly striking several officers in the process. The deflation devices caused one of the driver's tires to deflate, resulting in a 4-mile slow-speed chase before officers finally got him in their custody. They identified him as 51-year-old George D. Andrews and charged him with leaving the scene of a property damage, driving an uninsured and unregistered vehicle, assault by means of a dangerous weapon, refusing to stop for police, and resisting arrest. After Andrews was taken out of the truck and arrested, his dog was taken by the animal control officers in Foxborough. He pleaded innocent, and his case was continued for a pre-trial conference. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get pulled over by police while you're out with your best friend and have them act uncooperative, or lose your ID and be denied entry to the bar where your best friend is holding their bachelor or bachelorette party? Let us know in the comments below.